All right, so for our next presentation, we have our gold sponsor, SUSE, being represented by Jon Shaw, who's the Global Sales Director with SUSE NeuVector, who will be presenting on container security defense in depth. Jon comes to SUSE with more than 25 years of experience in global sales and business development positions, with a particular focus working at fast-growing enterprise security providers. Prior to NeuVector, Shaw has been serving as the EMEA Sales Director at threat intelligence vendor Reversing Labs, Northern European Sales Director at cybersecurity management company Skybox, and also as the EMEA Business Development Manager at White Hat Security. So over to you, Jon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. So I'm Jon Shaw. I'm based in the UK. Would have been great to have had a virtual event, but we're obviously here today. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is container security defense in depth. For those of you who are not familiar with NeuVector, NeuVector was founded in 2012 out of San Jose, California. And what we brought to the market was a full lifecycle container security solution. We've been very successful in doing that around the globe with lots of heavily regulated organizations, and we're providing a total end-to-end security solution. And what I want to talk about today is looking at container security, because it really depends on where you are on your containerized journey and maturity as to what level of security that you start to implement. And I think, the NeuVector story, given our success and recent acquisition by SUSE, plays a key part in this sector. And I'm sure a lot of your organizations are either at the beginning of a containerized journey or you're slightly more mature. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we secure that environment from end to end. So we've seen around the globe that lots of organizations are now adopting containerization as a standard. It's cheaper, faster, better for application development. But when you move into a containerized environment, whether that's native Kubernetes, OpenShift, or even SUSE's Rancher, you have to make certain trade-offs. One of the biggest trade-offs is that all of the investment that has been made in a traditional data center environment from a security point of view is completely blind in a containerized environment. So you don't have that visibility. You don't necessarily understand where all of the threats are within a containerized environment. And with Kubernetes in particular, you have the complexity of container networking and lack of visibility of that infrastructure. So it's really, really important as organizations adopt a containerized strategy that they have their eyes on the open road and have that visibility into the network connections within the containerized environment. I'm just going to play a very short video now just to illustrate some of the capabilities of the NeuVector, SUSE NeuVector solution.
Your enterprise is quickly moving toward a container-based application deployment strategy across multi-cloud and on-premise platforms. The problem is, these Kubernetes, Docker, and OpenShift environments operate at a highly automated scale with hundreds, even thousands of containers continuously scaling up and down. Sandy in DevOps wants to integrate security into the CI/CD pipeline and move so quickly into production that Bob in security worries he won't be able to keep up. When this explosion of east-west container traffic is combined with low network visibility and legacy security tools, everyone's left blind and powerless against cyber attacks, ransomware, data breaches, and more. And the last thing that CSO Enrique needs is to become front-page news for the wrong reasons. That's where NeuVector comes in. As the leader in full lifecycle container security, we offer the only cloud-native Kubernetes security platform delivering uncompromising end-to-end protection, from DevOps vulnerability protection to automated runtime security, and featuring a true Layer 7 container firewall. Others focus primarily on image scanning, remaining blind to network attacks. With NeuVector, Sandy can scan for vulnerabilities in development and production. Bob's able to detect threats and segment application traffic with a Layer 7 container firewall. But we don't stop there. NeuVector correlates deep network intelligence with container inspection and host security, allowing for detection of attacks at multiple points in the kill chain. From DevOps to runtime, get protection without compromise with NeuVector.
So for those of you who are familiar with containerized environments, I think the easy part of the first part of securing those environments is being able to use something like supply chain security. We're all familiar with vulnerability, compliance, and configuration scanning. I refer to that as sort of the easy part and where most organizations start, right? How do you defend against something when you don't know what you're defending against? And the quickest and easiest way to do that is to use vulnerability scanning to scan the environment to understand where the potential risks are. But what we're seeing in the containerized world and in the legacy world as well is that, you know, organizations don't always have immediate patches or fixes to those vulnerabilities, therefore leaving you open as an organization. So from a NeuVector point of view, it's really key to look at things like runtime security in addition to vulnerability scanning across the containerized environment. With the NeuVector solution, we do things slightly differently. We have the ability to provide visibility of the network infrastructure. So we understand at layer 7 the network connectivity that exists within a containerized environment. And based on that live traffic, we then therefore have the ability to put things like threat-based and zero trust controls in place. So we might tell you where the vulnerabilities are, but we can also now understand from a network traffic point of view whether something is going to target that particular vulnerability and therefore give you the ability to stop all communication to that particular container. So some of the threat-based controls that we need to consider, you know, I've already said CVE hunting is kind of, you know, easy to do. There are lots of vendors in that space that are delivering that capability. But with the SUSE NeuVector capability, because we can see all of that data at layer 7, we can add some additional, what I would call traditional functionality into a containerized environment. So things like data loss prevention is very key to heavily regulated, maybe financial insurance organizations. So because we have our eyes on the data and we can see that at layer 7, we can also therefore look for any critical data or data that is deemed critical to an organization to ensure that there is no data loss occurring within a containerized environment. We're able to monitor things like network attacks. So in order to initiate a network attack within a containerized environment, you have to start some sort of Linux process. If we've not learned about that process and it's not whitelisted, we can just stop and kill that network attack from occurring within a containerized environment. We have a layer 7 firewall built into the solution. So you can, through automated behavioral learning and being able to see that traffic at layer 7, we can start to build through automation a network rule base to allow certain behaviors to happen or not to happen. And we can also obviously block or deny any suspicious or malicious behavior. Now, using that vulnerability data and being able to see the network infrastructure allows us to also put very granular admission controls in place. So we can start to restrict teams of developers from doing certain things, or we could only point them in the direction of a particular registry. And they may only be able to bring images into the organization that have, say, less than 5 highly critical vulnerabilities. So you can really get to a very granular security posture across your containerized environments. From a zero trust point of view, as I mentioned previously, we're doing a lot of automated behavioral learning. We're viewing the live traffic. So effectively in a legacy environment, we're looking something like a network tap where we're looking at that traffic at layer 7 and we're able to provide that visualization. But for a zero trust runtime, what we're doing is we're also looking at running processes on those containers and also monitoring the file access. So through automated behavioral learning, looking at those 3 key areas within the containerized environment, we're building up a container network security policy. This can be done on individual containers, or this could be done on individual namespaces. And typically you would build that security policy whilst in test and dev. And then finally, we have the ability to use what we call security as code. And that is the ability to extract that security policy as a YAML file. You can then make the necessary tweaks to that file before putting new containers into production and overlaying that security policy that you've built during the test and development phase. So extremely powerful, and there are certain areas here that organizations didn't even know sort of was possible. So, most organizations at the beginning of their containerized journeys really just focus in on that vulnerability management, being able to understand where the risks are, what the severity of the vulnerabilities are, and quite often are not aware that there are solutions available that will give them that full visibility of exactly what is going on from a network communication point of view. So based on being able to see that data, what we're able to do is provide organizations with that visibility of the containerized network infrastructure. This is a screenshot from a very large credit reference agency based here in the UK, Experian, and some of you may be familiar with them. But what we're looking at here, and if this were in a live environment, is a live map that is refreshed every 2 to 4 seconds of the containerized environment. In a live environment, we could click on any of these blue lines. We could understand what application was being used. We would understand what the IP address was, what the port number was, any geolocation information that was relevant. So this map becomes very, very powerful when you're trying to troubleshoot a containerized environment. We can also click on these blue lines. We can understand the amount of bandwidth that is using that communication. We can also do things like packet capture for forensics. So, very, very important. We can do this in an automated way. So we could just trigger it to start if we think there's something suspicious or malicious going on, or we can manually start that packet capture so it can be used at a later stage. We can quarantine containers. So we could kill all connections without killing the container at this point. And where we're seeing the red or the yellow orange dots on the screen here would highlight that there are highly critical vulnerabilities and or configuration and compliance issues. So from a Gartner point of view, there isn't currently a magic quadrant for container security, but Gartner have been out and done some research back in 2020. And they really positioned NeuVector at the top of this pile here. So the ability to provide that layer 7 micro-segmentation, application behavior-based control. So we're learning about the behavior of the clusters and the individual containers themselves. Clearly, vulnerability management is extremely key. And then the ability to really understand who's got access to what within the containerized environment and being able to manage that. And I'm sure in the future, as containers gain momentum and more maturity, we will see Gartner issue a magic quadrant for this sector. So from a vulnerability management point of view, it's key that you interact throughout the software development lifecycle. So you need to be able to interact with those CI/CD pipelines so you can pass or fail builds at that level. You also need to be able to support all of the online and any private registries that you have. So you do that image scanning before they're brought into the organization. And again, with the SUSE NeuVector solution, we support all of the CI/CD pipelines such as Jenkins, CircleCI, Bamboo, so we can interact with that level and all of the online registries that you'd use. All the way through into the running containers themselves and being able to provide that runtime security. Also looking at things like CIS benchmarking, and more recently we were certified by Red Hat OpenShift to be able to report on Red Hat security advisories and also run Red Hat's equivalent of CIS benchmarking. So from a runtime behavioral point of view, what's really, really important is to build that visualization and understand what the east-west traffic is within a containerized environment. And again, this could be in a private cloud, a hybrid cloud, any kind of public cloud infrastructure, wherever you're running containers, you need to have that visibility. And can also look at the north-south, so anything that's communicating with that containerized environment. So with the NeuVector solution, because we can see all of that data using proprietary deep packet inspection technology, we can provide that network visibility. As I've already mentioned, we can also provide things like data loss prevention. So we have data loss prevention probes for credit card numbers, more for the American market social security numbers. But as an organization, you can build your own data loss prevention probes to look for whatever is important to you as an organization. And we're building that security policy using automated behavioral learning on the live environment. So we are non-obtrusive at the beginning, but when we move containers into what we call protect mode, we do move in line with the live environment and cause very minimal overhead. But when we're moved in line in what we refer to as protect mode, we have the ability to block or deny any suspicious or malicious behavior. So if we haven't whitelisted something as deemed as good behavior, we will automatically, through automation, kill that communication, that process, or somebody accessing that file. So we're really getting organizations to that zero trust micro-segmented model within the containerized environment. And as I mentioned previously, this is fully backed up by being able to provide security as code. So being able to extract that automated behavioral learned security policy so that you can put containers into production, knowing that you've built the security policy to the corporate standard. So at a high level, what we're looking at here is full software development lifecycle vulnerability management, which I always refer to as sort of the easy part or phase one of a containerized security plan. Again, phase two would be looking at things like data leakage prevention and really getting organizations to that layer 7 micro-segmentation model within a containerized environment. The ability to prevent those zero-day attacks from happening within the containerized environment, and being able to baseline and use automation to understand the behavior of the containerized environment and provide that network visibility is absolutely key. We're seeing lots and lots of growth in the containerized world. I would suggest that probably 95% of customers that I look after around the globe are using NeuVector in an OpenShift environment, but we're certainly seeing native Kubernetes, Docker, OpenShift, as I've mentioned, and also now being part of the larger SUSE family, we're also seeing a lot of customers that are starting to deploy Rancher. One of the things I should mention around this capability is that since the acquisition of NeuVector by SUSE back in October last year, in May of this year, we actually open sourced this capability. So this capability is available. You can go and download it from GitHub, whatever registry you like, and you can deploy this into your environment today. So a little bit, maybe some food for thought, and providing you with some angles that perhaps haven't been thought of, maybe introducing you here to a technology that nobody knew had that capability. To provide that network visibility within the containerized environment. So hopefully that's been insightful for those of you who are at the beginning of your journey, showing you the art of the possible, and perhaps some of those out there that are more mature and perhaps looking to enhance security within the containerized environment. Hopefully that has given you a good flavor for maybe a slightly different capability from a security point of view. If you'd like to have any further information, I'm going to be around online for the rest of today and around tomorrow. More than happy to have a chat with anybody. There are some of my colleagues from SUSE who are also available. So thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John, for the detailed presentation. It was very insightful indeed. We do not have any questions on the stage yet. But if we do get questions from the audience, we have your contact details that we refer to the booth. We'll be passing on the leads to you from that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time once again. And we thank the opportunity for having SUSE with us as the gold sponsor as well. We will, like I said, we have the booth area where anybody who's interested can move on to the booth, drop in your questions, meet with the representatives. So thank you once again, John.
Thank you.